Player 2 has joined the game.
Hey yo, what's up everybody, and welcome to another two-player co-op quick hits episode. As always, I'm your host here, Kevin, along with my brother from my mother, Sean.
Hey yo.
Hey yo. You all right there?
I'm good. Had a belch.
What are we talking about today, Sean?
As you may or may not know, yesterday, the 29th of September, 2016, is the 20th birthday. Anniversary. Birthday.
Thank you.
It was
I'm
born.
fine with birthday. A lot of people just say anniversary for this. I think it's the birthday. Because it's when it
was
launched.
born,
It's when it was
yeah.
born into the wild.
That's a good movie. 20th birthday of the Nintendo 64.
I don't think I watched it.
So good.
Originally codenamed Project Reality.
Later, before it became the N64. Just
Wait
kidding.
for it. Wait for it. But yes, the Nintendo 64 launched September 29th, 1996. Do you know what its launch lineup included?
What? People liked Pilot Wings. I
And
never
that's-
played it.
But that's it. That's your launch lineup is Mario 64. A lot of people, one of the best games ever made.
And wasn't
And
included
Pilot
with it?
Wings. No. I think you had to buy it separately. But I'm not 100% sure on that.
Because that would be weird if it's like, okay, buy an N64, here's Mario 64. Do you want another game? Okay, here's Pilot Wings. You want another game? Tough. You're going to have to
Sorry.
wait
You know how long they had to wait?
a month.
Halloween.
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat Trilogy came out.
Really? Was was the third game?
Third game released for the N64. Then after that,
Then it blew up after that.
I mean, not really. November 1st, Wave Race 64 came out.
Came out.
Then Killer Instinct Gold came out November 25th, and Cruisin' USA on December 3rd. Fantastic game. We'll get into the games later, but that was it before Christmas.
So I didn't get this in 96.
No.
Because I got it with Ocarina.
That was
97?
98. 98.
No.
Yeah. We'll get there.
Oh.
The Nintendo 64 lifetime sales, 32.9 million units, 20.63 million in the Americas, 5.5 million in Japan, and 6.75 million in other areas. So just under 33 million. For comparison's sake, in that generation, the PlayStation, well, let's start. The Saturn sold 9.25 million. That's tough for us Sega fanboys to hear. PlayStation 1, take a guess. I know we've talked about it before.
We have,
you
but I don't remember. 80 million.
102.5 million. So
Wow.
more than triple what the N64 sold, which is just mind-boggling. But hey, the N64 had some stuff we had never seen before. The first analog stick ever to appear on a home console, and the first rumbling controller with the Rumble Pack.
With the Rumble Pack. But that wasn't at launch.
No.
Yeah.
No, that was down the line. The analog stick was there at launch with the three. You needed three hands to play the thing,
Right.
and a lot of people put holes in their hand
Yep.
with one of the games that would come out, but we'll talk about that later. 388 games were manufactured for the Nintendo 64 over its lifespan. Just shy of 225 million games were sold, so that makes an attach rate of just under 7 games sold per console. Not bad. Not bad. So 6.8 games for every console sold.
I'm trying to think of how many games I had.
You had more than that.
I definitely had more than that, but not like a huge, like probably 12 to 15,
Yeah.
maybe.
Both Zeldas, all 3 wrestling games. We had that crappy WWF Attitude or whatever it was, right? Well, WWF Warzone. Or did we just
Raw.
rent that? There was Raw and there was Warzone, right?
Oh, maybe it was just
Before THQ.
the second one was. Well, the second one was just looked like the first one, but a little bit better.
They were okay.
But we only had the first one. We
Okay.
rented the second one.
Okay. And that was before THQ.
But yeah, we
got the
had
license.
Revenge, WrestleMania, No Mercy,
You had both
Zelda.
games. Did you have Castlevania or did we just
I had
rent
Castlevania
that? Okay.
64. Donkey Kong Country.
Didn't have
or
Mario.
Donkey Kong, whatever it was called.
Didn't have Mario.
I didn't have Mario.
Matt had Mario.
Matt had Mario. I mean, I don't know how I didn't have Mario.
Well, it
I
was
guess
2
because
years
I got
after.
it with
Yeah.
Ocarina. But what? I had Perfect
Win
Dark.
back.
I don't think I own WinBack.
Yeah, we did.
I don't think so.
Oh, I'm pretty sure Mom and Dad threw that game out. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we owned that game.
I had Perfect Dark. Well, there were probably some random games that we had too, or that I had. It was mine.
I mean, it's true.
I can't think of any. Castlevania was a huge disappointment, though.
I just remember it being so just like
It was very, very difficult.
horrible. It
It
they had
doesn't
not
work.
figured out 3D.
Right.
They had barely figured out 3D platformers. They hadn't figured out 3D action heavy games back then.
Right. Yeah. Not at all.
And all I remember from that game is the opening level, and I can remember a big door you go through, and I just remember the whip was just like this line that would just like it didn't seem like a whip. After the great whip physics on the Super Nintendo, where you could
Yeah, this was a step back.
this was a big step back.
And all you fought were like giant skeletons, and then the second level was the proverbial. Well, I guess it wasn't a clock tower, but it was a tower. And I don't think I ever got past the second level.
Yeah. Did you actually spend? You wouldn't have spent your money on that game.
No, that was a Christmas or birthday present.
Yeah.
I'm sure I own more games, but those are the only ones that come to mind right now.
Well, we'll go through some more of them a little bit later on here as we celebrate the 20th birthday of the the Nintendo 64.
Next year, we'll have to take it out for some drinks.
Wow, it will be able to drink. It's legal now, and I can make a lot of jokes, but I'm just not going to do that. Did you know? Of course, you should check out from them. Not all of them, but some of the stuff. Did you know Nintendo stuck with cartridges because CD-ROMs were quote too slow for the graphics they were wanting to output?
I didn't know that, actually.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
I get it. I mean, now it's not as big of a deal, but back then, I remember on Saturn,
The loading times
the
were
low
bad.
times were horrible on games that just didn't seem like they really needed it. Obviously, you took a hit on the audio by far and graphics to some extent.
And
but,
full motion video and stuff like that.
right. In the end, it probably wasn't a great idea, but I see where they were coming from. I didn't play the original PlayStation too much, but load times on the Saturn were awful. And I can't imagine PlayStation was much better.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember playing like Street Fighter Alpha, Toshinden, stuff like that on the PlayStation. The load times were pretty bad.
Yeah.
The original reported specs of the Nintendo 64 were much higher than what the system would end up at, which made creating games for the system quite difficult. It was renamed the Nintendo 64 from the...
Dolphin. Ultra 64.
Thank you.
But wasn't it called Dolphin too?
No, Dolphin was GameCube. Because this was Project Reality.
Okay. I'm going to look that up, but
You
you
can
may
look
be
it
right.
But do you know
crazy.
But do you know why they renamed it Nintendo 64 from the Ultra 64?
Why, Kevin?
No, think about it, because I bet you can come up with it.
Ultra. Why they changed it to Nintendo or why they changed it from Ultra?
Why they changed it from Ultra.
Wasn't Ultra a video game company?
Ultra, you can now do your research there. Ultra, if you remember, if you were a gamer in like the late 80s, early 90s, you would know that Ultra Games was a subset of Konami. Back then, publishers could only publish so many games per year for Nintendo. So to get around that, companies would come up with fake companies like Moby Dick Promotions. So Konami would publish games under Ultra Games. It was still Konami, but they got around the little loopholes by making them under Ultra Games. The most famous one, I would say, is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. The arcade game was made under Ultra Games.
Yes.
So that's why they didn't want to get any copyright issues with Konami over the name Ultra, so they renamed it the Nintendo 64. What is the Dolphin? Also, did you know a lot of the early games, this blows my mind. I didn't write this down here, but I just remembered it. Like Mario 64 and all the early games, those 64-bit graphics, these carts were 4 meg carts. Whereas Genesis and Super Nintendo sometimes were having 32 or 40 meg carts. They were coming on 4 meg carts. That's why some of the textures and stuff were so downgraded, because they
How
were...
is it even possible?
Compression, I don't know. It's insane to think about. Super Mario 64 was a 4 meg cart. Let that sink in. Open that door. Let that sink in. The expansion pack upgraded the memory from 4 megabits to 8. It was required for Donkey Kong 64, Majora's Mask,
Yep.
and Perfect Dark. It came with Donkey Kong 64.
Yes,
So you didn't have Donkey Kong 64.
I did.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Okay.
I bought that. I think that was my first and one of only, I can count on one hand the number of eBay purchases I've made.
Oh,
But that was
wow.
my first eBay purchase. And I don't know why. I don't know if it was like such a big game that it was sold out for a while and I had to go through. I don't know why I went through eBay to get it, but I know I did.
So did you buy it before you got Majora's Mask?
I must have.
Or maybe you already had the
I got
Rumble
Majora's Mask for my birthday.
In
Whenever it
2000?
came out.
It came out in 2000.
Then, yeah, I got it for my birthday then. So I must have gotten Donkey Kong before that.
Wow.
I don't know when Donkey Kong came out, but yeah, because Majora's Mask didn't come with it. You had to either buy it separate or get it with Donkey Kong.
Same with
Yeah.
Perfect Dark. You needed it to play that, but it didn't come with it.
I forgot that Perfect Dark was one of the ones that used it, but
Do you remember the 64 DD?
the rumored,
No, not
Never-
rumored. It was real.
just in Japan or something,
Only in Japan.
the disc.
64 disc drive. The funny
Yeah.
thing is, it was not a compact disc drive. It was magnetic discs, like zip drive discs or something like that.
Oh,
It was announced before the Nintendo 64 even came out in 1995, but it didn't come out in Japan until 1999. Final thing was going to come out in America, so then they moved development over to PlayStation 1.
and the rest is
Rest
history,
is history.
as they say.
It was a huge failure. 15,000 units sold. They only made 10 games for it. 85,000 units were left unsold and sitting on store shelves. And had to just 64 guy than I was.
Yes.
So what are your favorite memories, the things that stand out to you the most when it comes to the Nintendo 64?
So first and foremost, goes without saying,
One of the best
Ocarina.
games ever made, yeah.
The best game ever made, actually.
One of.
Ocarina of Time. I'm trying to think of what my life was even like back then. I can vaguely remember commercials for Ocarina.
Okay.
The only thing I remember from the commercials that they showed, like the Temple of Time animation when you either stick the sword in or pull the sword out as young Link, and it like zooms out. I remember that from the commercial. But again, this was, I don't think it was pre-internet, but it was pre-internet as we know it.
Yeah, I mean, Prodigy, AOL.
Right. And it was basically just, there's a Zelda game coming. I've seen what Mario looks like on the system. This seems like it's going to be awesome. And I just said, I mean, again, it's not like I got any other games with it. I probably did, but
I
can't think
You
of-
didn't need any other games.
right. Maybe I didn't get any other games with it, but fell in love with it immediately. It was everything I wanted it to be, and then some. Obviously, games like Mario, I mean, they're all huge
Je ne sais quoi.
games. But for me, when I think N64, I think Ocarina of Time. When I think Ocarina of Time, I think N64. They're like this. It's just, and for that, the Nintendo 64, I think, will always have a special place for me. But that is the first thing that comes to mind when I think of N64.
See, the first thing that comes to mind for me, what do you think it is?
Mario 64.
Wrestling.
No more. Well,
98, 2000, 2001. 3 best wrestling games ever made. I didn't get into Ocarina back then. If you've been watching or listening to us here at the Two Player Co-op Podcast, you would know that. I didn't even play Ocarina all the way through until earlier this year. Yeah, I missed out for sure. One of the best games ever made, flat out. But to me, I think of those wrestling games, and I think of how perfectly they controlled, how simple the graphics were, but how it did not matter. Like, we didn't need PS4 Pro. We didn't need 4K resolution and full motion video intro videos when the wrestlers came down. Do you remember the intro videos in those games? They were just
like a few pictures.
They were the music
like flash,
and a couple flashing
flash,
pictures.
flash, and then
that
this picture, flash, flash, flash.
But as soon as that bell rang and you started, it didn't matter. It was just so much fun that no wrestling game has come close to any of those 3 games since that time. That's what jumps out to me when I think of the N64. After that, it's probably Ocarina, even though I didn't experience it on there.
Yeah.
But for me, when I think of the N64, I think of those just fantastic wrestling games that are some of the best games ever made.
Yeah, I would probably put No Mercy as my second favorite N64 game behind Ocarina. I mean, that game the gameplay was absolutely perfect. It was not realistic at all. It was definitely more arcade style than simulation, but nobody cared. It didn't. For hours, good buddy Brent, he would come over. We each had our own creator wrestler. I was Whitey. His guy was Wowie. We were the tag champs multiple times, probably multiple records. But no, we would play that game. We would do Royal Rumbles. We would do like the story mode. We would do.
It never got old. Do you remember the Royal Rumble? The way they would enter, like it would. Be
it'd like zoom in on their face.
Go like it, and they go and they'd run down the ring. I was wrong. WrestleMania 2000 came out in '99. No Mercy came out in 2000. I thought I was wrong on that, but I just fact checked myself, so I'll give myself I was wrong there. But
that WrestleMania 2000 came out before the pay-per-view. Before we even knew it was going to be called WrestleMania 2000, right?
Yes, and now saying this makes me wonder. I remember thinking at the time, I wonder if they just called it WrestleMania 2000 instead of WrestleMania 16
because of the game? Or they called the game that because they knew.
Right. I don't know.
I don't know. When I think of WrestleMania 2000, it was basically just WWF Revenge.
Yes.
It was not a huge difference. I mean, the gameplay never changed. Well, the controls never changed.
Right.
They added a lot to it, but the graphics were almost identical. It was just WWF wrestlers instead. It always looked like you just had a torso, and then you had these arms that were connected, but not really connected.
Barely. Right.
And then No Mercy kind of smoothed everything out, but like I've said before, when I went back and looked at gameplay of this game, it does not look as good as I remembered. But I don't care.
Right. I just want to play it.
Right. If they release that game on... I mean, the only thing I really have now is PS4. But if they somehow re-release that game, not even a remaster, just
put it on
release
the virtual
it
console.
as it is,
yeah.
I would buy that in a heartbeat.
Any 3 of those games, if they put them up on the virtual console...
Oh, yeah. I would buy
See,
that.
the thing is, so
day.
THQ doesn't exist anymore. But 2K bought the rights to the WWE games, so I would think they would still have the rights to those old games to where they could just publish them on the virtual console.
Right.
Maybe not.
But the other thing that jumps out at me, I remember this was towards the end of our... Wait, so I got it in 98. You graduated high school in 99. So you only lived with the N64 for another 6-7 months. So maybe it was just during that time frame for the most part. But I also think of good old Video Loft, as we've mentioned, renting games. This is why I don't think we owned WinBack. I definitely remember renting it. I remember renting Banjo-Kazooie.
See, I never played Banjo.
I remember renting... I think it was just called Mega Man 64, whatever the Mega Man game.
Yeah,
it was like a 3D.
3D, yeah.
It's just
because
not
everything
good.
was 3D.
I don't think there was a single, with the exception of WinBack. No, WinBack and Resident Evil 2 were the only 2 good games I remember renting on the 64.
Is that the first place you played it? Because it didn't come out on the Saturn.
That was actually, I don't know why I remember this, but I remember very clearly. I rented, I'm sure it was a 2 or 3 night, I don't even know if they did 3 night, 2 night rental, not a 1 night rental. But I rented Resident Evil 2 and I beat it in one renting. And this is long before I ever beat Resident Evil 1 that we had on Saturn.
Really? Okay.
it just seemed like it was so much easier. I feel like I flew through that game. In Resident Evil 1, I think I got about as far,
You ran out of
again,
ribbons
back
and
in the
crap.
day, I got as far as when you go out to like the guest. I mean, obviously it's not an N64 game. That came out on probably 10 different systems, but another good memory I had of the N64.
What do you think is the best-selling game ever in the history of the N64? Obviously, you know what it is, but
Mario 64.
11.89 million units. So 1 out of every 3 people that had an N64 had Mario 64.
I mean, I was
And
one
we
of the ones that
didn't
didn't. I was one of the ones that didn't.
Now, what do you think number 2 is? Because this threw me for a loop. I didn't expect this. Just shy of 10 million units.
Is it still Mario?
Tell me what you think it is.
Mario Party.
No.
Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Hmm.
9.87 million units.
So I know for a fact I'm in the vast.
Yeah.
Oh, everybody. That's like everybody's fit. That's why
The 64 one is?
Yeah.
That's why they were playing it at Rec Room?
Yes.
Wow.
I
Okay.
loved it on Super Nintendo, and I was awesome at it. I just couldn't get the hang of it on 64. I couldn't get the control. I don't know. I was just all over the track. I couldn't do it. Then Double Dash came out in the GameCube. Not one of the better ones, but I was pretty good at that. And then the Wii one came out, and I was really good at that. But I just never got into the 64 one, and I don't know why. Everybody loves it. I couldn't.
I didn't know that.
I'd like to maybe go back now and play it and see if I can figure it out, but the controls just seemed very loose. I feel like you were always all over the track. I don't know. It wasn't my favorite. But that's a very obvious, number 2 best-selling game. I get it.
What's number 3?
Is it Mario?
No.
No. It's not Zelda. I don't think. Zelda games don't really sell well.
Which
as
always
much as I love them.
boggles my mind. Some of the best games ever made.
I don't know. Is it like Wave Race or something like that?
Nope. That's number 19.
No. What is it?
It's a licensed game. I really never played it. I know people look at that game so fondly, but I've never been a good first-person shooter player. I know it broke the mold back then with the 4-player split screen stuff, and then you could actually look at your other. You could cheat and be like, okay,
Yeah.
where's this guy at
Everybody
over
cheated,
there? And it's just
but-
completely different than playing online Call of Duty or something like that. Now, what do you think number 4 is?
Smash?
It's number 5.
What is it?
Ocarina of Time.
Oh, okay.
7.6 million. And then Super Smash rounds out the top 5 with 5.5 million sold. To round out the top 10, Diddy Kong Racing at number 6. That blows my mind. I didn't even know that was a game.
Oh, I knew it was a game. I just don't think I ever played it.
Number 7, Pokemon Stadium. 8, Donkey Kong 64. Number 9, Majora's Mask version. That's really the
It
only
was
one I've
the
ever
only,
played.
yeah. Well, I won't say it's the only good one. I never got into Star Fox as a whole, but yeah, I think most people, when they think Star Fox, you think of the Super Nintendo version.
So some other interesting things here. Banjo-Tooie outsold Banjo-Kazooie. Banjo-Tooie, 2.38 million, and then No Mercy and WrestleMania 2000 almost sold the same, 1.5 for No Mercy and 1.48 for the good ones.
I think for true Mario Party, fanatics, 2 always seems to be right up there.
Yeah. Cruis'n USA came in at number 25. Mario Tennis was up there at 24. What else is here? Kirby 64 was 29. Mario Party 3 is up there also.
You know what Mario Tennis is? I don't know if this is really. I mean, it's true, but what Mario Tennis is known for,
No.
or a trivia question for Mario Tennis. It was the debut of.
The girl that's not Peach.
Nope.
Waluigi?
Yep.
Really?
Waluigi. That was the first game he was in. Games.
Yeah, it was
I don't
Mario
remember
Land
which
2,
one.
I think. The 6 golden coins or whatever it's called, something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So I don't know. What other beloved systems of all time? The N64 has some of the most important games ever made, but I just don't feel like it's remembered as fondly. A few of the games are remembered more fondly.
Super Nintendo 15-year anniversary.
Yep.
And I think we both
You mean
pretty much
25.
agree. Yep, can't do math. That it's probably the best system ever.
Yeah.
Or it's got a very, very strong case for it.
Yep.
That knows anything about video games, you're always going to see that game in their top 10 of all time, probably a lot higher than that. Mario 64 begat so many. Not that it wouldn't have happened without it, but you think Mario 64, you think all the other Mario, the Sunshine, the Galaxies, all those. You think Banjo-Kazooie, you think Donkey Kong 64. All those
Spyro.
3D Spyro,
Ratchet.
yeah. Ratchet and Clank, yeah. All those
Jak and Daxter, all those
3D platformer games all kind of spawned off of, hey, I haven't hit the microphone yet today.
We still got time.
All kind of came from Mario 64, really. And to do that kind of game. You already mentioned GoldenEye. I was thinking about this earlier. That is one of the first. That is probably maybe, I guess not the first, but the biggest first-person shooter at that time. I mean, this was after Doom and Wolfenstein and
Right.
good old Zero Tolerance and
Quake.
Descent.
I remember when Quake.
it may have.
Quake
This-
was around the same time, I think.
Yeah.
96, 97, somewhere in there.
But as far as what we think of first-person shooters today,
Yeah.
multiplayer, it was the first. Maybe not the first to offer multiplayer, but the first one to make a big deal out of it. And as much as I don't care for first-person shooters, this was a cool game. And it was simple enough, even though you had, I think it was one of those games where you moved with the stick and you used the C, up, down, left, right buttons to like look around. So it was very like stiff. You were like,
Just
it wasn't
that's
like
how, That's how Snake Eater 3D is on the 3DS. And that is almost
Oh,
impossible
really?
to play.
Yeah.
I download the demo. It's just not good. But continue.
But it was also, for somebody like me who I suck at first person shooters, it definitely leveled the playing field. It just, I could play that game, at least at the time, I felt like I could play that game and still I could compete. Now, granted, you couldn't play online. This is obviously way before that. But the people I played with were much more into first person shooters than I was. And I never felt like the next one after that I played with people was probably Halo. And I couldn't do it. It just,
Right.
I couldn't compete. It wasn't fun. I just didn't care. We've already talked about No Mercy quite a bit. Mario Party, that's pretty groundbreaking. I mean, there hasn't really been too many games other than the Mario Party franchise that have done that. But Mario Party is huge. It's definitely a good, college, like drinking kind of, get everybody over, let's play some Mario Party, whatever. But that had never been done before at the time. And it really hasn't. I'm shocked that more franchises or companies haven't latched onto that. There's really Mario Party has no competitors.
Yeah, there's no real.
There's one.
I'm
game,
sure they're out there. These mini game style of games on consoles, but none of them come close to Mario Party.
No, and we're up to like 10 or 11 now, I think.
I think 10 was the latest one. Yeah.
Right. Another thing I never got into, but is absolutely huge, Smash. I get it. It's kind of fun. That game was, that took everything that was cool about Mario 64 and made, obviously Donkey Kong isn't as well known as Mario, but it's, I think, better, more immersive levels. You could go back, you unlocked more of the Kongs throughout the game.
Okay.
And once you did, you could, even like the last one you unlocked, you don't unlock until like the 4th or 5th world, you could now take and go colored bananas that were basically like coins you could find, and every single Kong in every single level had to find, if you really wanted to complete the game, had to find all of their bananas find all of their mini games within
Good
that
Lord.
level and be like, it was, there's so much to do in that game, and I absolutely loved it. I would probably put that's probably number 3 for me as far as N64 games go, behind the pioneering it did.
I was going to say, it might not be the best, but it was definitely extremely influential.
Yes, that's probably the best way to put it. Super Nintendo had some of the best games ever. N64 games, while maybe they're not, I mean, some of them are fantastic. My number 1 game of all time is on the system, but it's almost more, look where we are today, and you can trace a lot of those lines back to the N64. Converge back to GoldenEye.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Mario and Zelda kind of speak for themselves. Donkey Kong was kind of just like Mario. Definitely, I like the way you put it. Definitely influential. Maybe not the best games ever, but
just because I didn't play it as much as you did to actually give it a nice concrete ranking, like one of the best games ever made, I just really discovered this year in Ocarina. Like, games are about the hardest to come by now, because you've got the Virtual Console for NES, some Genesis games on the Wii, Super Nintendo, Game Gear, Game Boy, all that stuff, Game Boy Advance, and then with PlayStation, you've got PlayStation Classics with PS1 and PS2 games, and some PS3 games and stuff like that are on PS Now. N64, like, they put out Ocarina of Time on the Wii Virtual Console. They put out Mario 64. I can't remember what other ones they've done, but that's just about it. I mean, those are the absolute toughest, unless you're going to, use an emulator or something like that. But to actually play them at home on a big screen TV on a console, N64 games are probably the hardest to come by, which is just crazy.
Yeah.
And it sucks because some of those are, some of those are the most fun games and best games ever made. It's just interesting that they haven't really figured that out. Hey, maybe if they ever, announce the NX, they'll do something with N64 emulation on that device.
Hopefully.
Anything else you want to add, Sean?
I think that's it.
Thanks, everybody. What you see, share the video with your friends. Tell them to subscribe, and we'd really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for being here for another 2-player co-op quick hits. And until the next time, hey, Sean.